Necronomicon Tarot. By Donald Tyson. Just get right into it. Introduction. This tarot is based on my own version of the Necronomicon. Necronomicon, The Wanderings of Alhazred, Llewellyn Publications, 2004. Many of the creatures and higher beings depicted on the cards will be familiar to the readers of the fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, but some of them only appear in the formerly unrevealed pages of Alhazred's book. Those seeking a deeper understanding of the beings not mentioned in Lovecraft's writings should consult my text where they are described for the first time. The Necronomicon Tarot was designed to be a fully functional tarot deck, suitable for both meditation and divination. I made a conscious effort to avoid turning it into a random picture gallery. Its trumps have the same astrological associations and adhere to the same sequence as the trumps of modern esoteric tarots that follow the Golden Dawn system of correspondences. Suits bear elemental properties that match those of esoteric tarots, as do the court cards, and the suit symbols resemble the symbols of the regular tarot, closely enough to avoid confusion. The prevailing colors of the suits are the colors of the elements linked with the suits in the Golden Dawn system. This structural similarity with modern esoteric tarots, such as decks designed by A.E. Waite, S.L. McGregor Mathers, and Aleister Crowley, allows the Necronomicon tarot deck to be used for serious divination work. The same layouts may be employed and the same interpretations applied to the cards as in other major esoteric tarots. It should be kept in mind that the general subject matter of this deck is grim, and this darkness of symbolism will color the results of fortunes told using the tarot. Readings may tend to be bleak and unforgiving if the cards are interpreted in a direct way. A diviner aware of this tendency should compensate for it by seeking an optimistic interpretation when doing readings for others, and should minimize the more gloomy meaning of the cards. The divinatory meaning of the cards in the text are based on conventional esoteric interpretations, and some instances are in minor discord with the card images. This is particularly noticeable for the court cards. The conventional interpretations have been provided so that the cards can be read in a divination layout with the usual results. But those who wish to modify their meanings to be more in harmony with the actual images of the Necronomicon tarot will find that they provide a somewhat different set of interpretations that still resonate with the conventional meanings. Let your intuition be your guide on this matter. The general plan of the deck can be described in a few words. The 22 picture cards known as the trumps are composed of gods, devils, and monsters that appear in my edition of the Necronomicon. They are agents of the cosmic forces that overshadow the world of humanity in the mythology of that work. The court cards are made up of distinct classes of human beings who might be found in the world of my Necronomicon. The temptation to introduce more colorful creatures into the cards was resisted because in tarot divination, the court cards represent people, not monsters, and I wish to preserve the practical utility of the deck. The number of cards of each suit present a connected narrative in pictures, the theme which is in harmony with the meaning of the suit. The number cards of the suits do not possess exactly the same meanings as the number cards of more conventional tarot decks. But if the two are compared, an underlying foundation will be perceived that links them. The suits of the Necronomicon tarot were composed so as to resonate with the suits in modern esoteric tarots that base their meaning on the Golden Dawn system. An understanding of the commonly accepted general meanings of the suit cards will aid in comprehending the particular meanings of the suit cards of this deck. Each trump bears the number of the card in Roman numerals, except for the trump that is equivalent to the Fool, which carries a 0. The conventional titles for the trumps also appear to avoid confusion along with titles that are descriptive of the actual scenes. For example, the trump of the Magician bears the conventional title Roman numeral 1, Magician, along with the descriptive title Nyarlathotep. The court cards carry only the conventional tarot titles to make their suit and rank immediately obvious. Their unique Necronomicon tarot titles will be found in this booklet. For example, the equivalent to the Queen of Cups bears the conventional title Queen of Cups, but also possesses the unique title Priestess, which you will find in this booklet along with the detailed description of the card. The figures are grouped into themes based on elemental significance of the suits. Wands, which is the suit of fire, relates to the human classes of the aristocracy, rulers, and overseers. The Cups suit of water is associated with the priestly and scholarly classes. Swords, the suit of air, is linked with the classes of warfare and lawlessness. Discs, the suit of earth, is one of the classes of magicians and diviners. The number cards of the suits from ace to 10 bear only the conventional names for ease of recognition. Their unique Necronomicon tarot titles will be found in this booklet along with their descriptions. The aces each show an enlarged version of the suit symbol, and multiples of the symbol appear in the following 9 number cards. For example, the 9 of Wands, which has the unique descriptive title Stability of Fire, shows 9 wand icons in the image on the card. Multiple suit symbols on each number card are not exactly the same as the symbol on the ace of the suit, but they are of the same general type. All the number cards of the suit of wands either show pillars, staffs, clubs, or rods because all of these objects express the essential esoteric quality of the archetypal symbol on the ace. The story told by the suit of wands concerns the mating of the arrogant and aristocratic Atlanteans with the deep ones, and subsequent civil war that resulted in the destruction of Atlantis through the use of crystal energy weapons. The story of the Suit of Cups is about an acolyte who experienced the 2 sides of the Egyptian cult of Bast, the cat goddess, when he becomes a member of that faith. The Suit of Swords tells a story of jealousy, violence, and revenge in Old Damascus. The Suit of Discs presents the preparations and dark ritual of a necromancer who seeks to compel the spirit of a dead woman to reveal the burial place of a strongbox containing a potent mystery. Users may question the appearance of the deep ones in the fiery suit of wands rather than the watery suit of cups. Although the deep ones dwell in the oceans, their nature is generally not in harmony with the suit of cups, which is associated with tender feelings of affection and love, as well as religion. The deep ones are not particularly loving, but seek to dominate and control. They are linked in my Necronomicon with the Atlanteans, who are arrogant race of slave-owning aristocrats, well adapted to represent the suit of wands. I considered whether to use the deep ones and the Atlanteans in the suit of cups, but finally decided that these joined races were too overbearing and aggressive to embody the gentle emotions of the water suit, despite their marine habitat. Those who seek a fuller understanding of the deep ones and all the other races and creatures depicted on the cards will find it in my book Necronomicon, The Wanderings of Alhazared, and also in my associated novel, Alhazared, which is based on the events and places described in my Necronomicon. But it is presented in other words from the personal viewpoint of the author Abdul Alhazared himself. The images in this tarot deck will derive directly from the Necronomicon, The Wanderings of Alhazred. So serious users are advised to read the book. It is not absolutely necessary to read my novel Alhazred to appreciate and use the Necronomicon tarot, but the novel will greatly enhance enjoyment of the deck because the strange creatures illustrated on its cards are described in great detail in the novel. This tarot is the third piece in a trilogy of work based on Lovecraft's mythos of the Old Ones. The first part is my interpretation of the Necronomicon. The second part, my novel, Alhazred, and the Necronomicon Tarot, completes the trilogy by providing graphic images of the beings and places in the books. The three works are meant to be fully appreciated as a group, although each is designed to stand on its own merits. A close comparison between the card images and the descriptions in this book will reveal minor details in the descriptions that are not found on the cards themselves. These discrepancies result from the process by which the cards were created. The artist, Anne Stokes, worked from my written descriptions, but for practical reasons she was not always able to incorporate every detail onto the card images. Where these descriptive details do not come into actual conflict with these images, I have allowed them to remain on the consideration that they add additional symbolism to the cards that aids in a fuller understanding of their meanings. Chapter 1, Necronomicon. I'll get a fucking drink. Some hard ass fucking shit to read. I thought I could read. Oh. All right. Chapter 1, Necronomicon. The Necronomicon is best known from references to it that appear scattered throughout the short fiction of the writer Howard Phillips Lovecraft, 1890 to 1937. A native of Providence, Rhode Island, whose stories of eldritch evil dignifies the pages of Weird Tales and other less prominent pulp magazines in the early decades of the 20th century. According to reputation, the mere possession of any edition of the Necronomicon is dangerous, and those who actually open and read the text may as well abandon hope, so certain is their destruction. Lovecraft described the book in one of his early tales of the unmentionable Necronomicon of the mad Arab Abdul Alhazred in Olaus Wormius's forbidden Latin translation, a book which I had never seen, but which I had heard the monstrous things whispered. The Festival, 1925. Alhazred, the reputed author of the work, according to Lovecraft, was a mad poet born in the land of Yemen, who dwelt during his maturity at Damascus in Syria, until his public murder by an invisible fiend in that city in 738 CE. Precisely what drove Alhazred mad has never been clear by Lovecraft, but we may assume it had something to do with the Old Ones, a race of godlike beings from beyond the stars who ruled Earth in its distant prehistory, and who wait with reptilian patience for the stars to once more come into their right courses, so that they can resume their despotism and enslave humanity. Perhaps because of this insanity, or perhaps due to the circumstances of his birth, Alhazred was gifted with an awareness of the Old Ones, and other equally strange and dangerous creatures who dwell at the edges of reality, seeking entrance to our world. In his old age, the humor moved in him to set his knowledge down in a book. The result was the Necronomicon. The Latin translation of Olaus Wormius's is only one edition of the work. Lovecraft made a detailed history of the dread tome in a private communication intended for his own circle of literary friends, He wrote that the original text, titled Al-Azif, which some have translated as buzzing of flies, was penned in Arabic by Al-Hazred around the year 730, less than a decade prior to his horrible and inexplicable death, so it remained until 1950, when the text was translated into Greek by Theodorus Philetes and given its present title, Necronomicon, which signifies customs concerning the dead. Exactly a century later, all known copies of the book were gathered together and burned by Michael Cerularius, Patriarch of Constantinople, ruled 1043 to 1058. Olaus made his Latin translation from a surviving Greek copy in 1228, and all known Arabic manuscripts of the work having perished. Only 4 years later, Pope Gregory IX, ruled 1227 to 1241, saw fit to suppress both the Latin and Greek editions of the work. The Elizabethan scholar and magician John Dee, 1527 to 1608, who owned the greatest library in England, caused a new translation to be made of the work into the English language, but it was never published and is said only to survive in fragments. The Latin translation of Olaus Wormius was printed in Germany in the 15th century and again in Spain in the 17th century. A copy of its first is said to be kept secure in the British Museum. Copies of the second, less rare printed version are supposed to reside in the occult collection of the Bibliothèque Nationale at Paris and in the libraries of several prominent universities. The printing history of the Greek text is unclear, but copies are rumored to be in the possession of private collectors, although they are exceedingly scarce. All this detail provided by Lovecraft about the history of the book is remarkable in light of the flat assertion of scholars that the book does not exist and has never existed in any edition. Those who persist in believing in the reality of the Necronomicon are derided as fools by skeptics, and perhaps this attitude is justified from a purely materialistic viewpoint. Lovecraft's publishing history of the book is completely apocryphal. Balancing the scorn of academia is the quiet assertion of practicing magicians such as Kenneth Grant, the head of a cult society known as the Ordo Templi Orientis, that the Old Ones and other beings described by Lovecraft do indeed exist on their own level of reality and possess a terrible power that can be harnessed through magic. If the Old Ones can be said in one sense to exist, so can the Necronomicon. There is an occult teaching that concerns the existence of a great astral library that takes many forms depending on the preconceptions and limitations of those who perceive it. And in this library are all the books that have ever been written on the earthly plane or any other level of reality. At times, the edges of this astral library overlap our world so that those who browse in musty second-hand bookstores or amid the stacks of ancient libraries of Europe, or even among private collections of antiquaries, may find themselves staring at the spines of books that no longer survive or books that never were written by a living human hand. This is said to happen when those who experience this translation to a higher space lapse into a kind of meditative daydream in which the environment around them grows dim and becomes unreal. The content of the Necronomicon varies between descriptions, so that it may be suspected that different astral editions contain entirely different sections of text. It is not uncommon for celebrated books, hand-copied over centuries, to acquire additional material that is inserted into the books by copyists, yet is attributed to the original author. It would explain why some editions of the Necronomicon are now said to be so much larger than others, assuming, for sake of discussion, that the work has reality on some higher plane. The contents fall into two broad categories based on the fragments and references provided by Lovecraft. The first is a description of the nature and history of the Old Ones and other races, such as the even more ancient Elder Things and the warlike Megop. Alhazred wrote at length about their activities, abilities, and purposes. The second is a discussion of practical magic, with particular emphasis on necromancy, which is the communication with the souls of the dead. The occult use of corpses and the raising of the dead back to corporeal life. Most modern Most modern recreations of the Necronomicon take the form of grimoires of practical magic that detail various hierarchies of spirits, their realms of authority, and the ways magic may be used to communicate with them and employ them for mundane purposes. My own version of the work is somewhat unusual in that it is a travel narrative by Alhazred of the strange places and extraordinary beings he encountered during his worldwide wanderings as a young scholar seeking occult knowledge. It contains all of the fragments of text asserted by Lovecraft to come from the Necronomicon, and in this sense is more faithful to the spirit of Lovecraft than any other version, but it also holds a great deal of occult information that Lovecraft never imagined. The lords of the Old Ones, described at length in my Necronomicon, are prominently displayed among the trumps of the Necronomicon tarot, along with the more humble creatures of nightmare and several pagan deities with which Alhazred interacted in my version of his book. The suit cards of the tarot do not present the social classes and general milieu of the world through which Alhazred traveled, with the exception of the suit of wands, which is considered with the deep ones in Atlantis, a land visited by Alhazred in my version of the book only during astral travel. The adventures of the author's life are given in a finer, more personal detail in my novel Alhazred, although I have not relied upon the novel as a source for the tarot. The beings depicted on the tarot are examined in the novel, and both the Necronomicon and Alhazred should be studied for the most complete understanding of the cards. So buy the other books. All right, Chapter 2, Cthulhu Mythos. Let me get some more water. Pretty interesting shit, man. Okay. Chapter 2, Cthulhu Mythos. The system of mythology that H.P. Lovecraft drew forth from his nightmares over the course of 2 decades, 1917 to 1937, and described in his tales of horror was given the collective title of the Cthulhu Mythos by one of Lovecraft's close friends, known writer August Derleth. The mysterious book known as the Necronomicon, also drawn from dreams by Lovecraft, is central to the Cthulhu mythos because the most important revelations concerning the mythos are supposed to have been written on its pages during the early part of the 8th century by the mad Arab poet Abdul Alhazred. The Cthulhu mythos has several aspects that set it apart from other more controversial, more conventional mythologies of gods and monsters. Lovecraft described a series of powerful and highly intelligent alien races that traveled across the gulfs of space or through dimensional portals to colonize the Earth in its distant past, long before the evolution of humanity. These races are essentially uninterested in human beings, except insofar as we may be used as slaves or as sources of nourishment. They are not evil in the conventional sense, but are beyond good and evil as we know them. In his tales of horror, Lovecraft postulated that these races have not vanished into the oblivion of the past, but are still present, concealed in the deep and secret places where they are protected from the harmful rays of the stars, which have become poisonous to them by virtue of their changing pattern in the heavens. Eventually, the stars will come right for them once again, as they were in distant past, and these beings will emerge from their protective hibernation to reclaim the earth and subjugate its inhabitants to their purposes. In the meantime, it is possible for certain cults of human beings to use rituals of magic to communicate with some of these beings. These cults worship these various old ones as gods and look forward to their return. The first race to come to this planet when it was no more than a bare rock and sterile oceans is known as the Elder Race. They are responsible for the origins of life on our world. They created mankind for their amusement, along with the majority of other species in the seas and on the land. One of the Elder Race is depicted on the Trump strength, overseeing the building of a massive stone wall of a great city by their slaves, the Shoggoths, which the Elder Ones used as beasts of burden before the Shoggoths rose in a revolt against them. During the impossibly long stewardship of the Elder Race upon the earth, other races came at various times to colonize our world. Among them is the spawn of Cthulhu that occupied certain volcanic islands in the Pacific Ocean. The time-traveling great race of Yith that exists only in our distant past and distant future, but not our present. The Megob from the planet Yuggoth, which we know as Pluto, who came to mine this world for its metals, and the monstrously huge Old Ones, who are invisible to unaided human vision. Certain alien individuals stand out from the rest as once and future lords of our world. Represented in the trumps of the tarot are mighty Cthulhu, who dreams in a death-like trance beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dagon, a fish god who dwells beneath the waves and rules over the seagoing race of deep ones, crafty Nyarlathotep, who is the messenger of the gods of chaos, Yog-Sothoth, the guardian of all portals between the spheres and dimensions, Shub-Niggurath, the endlessly fertile mother of monsters, Azathoth, the blind idiot god who pipes on his cracked flute the music that unfolds the threads of time and space, mysterious Yig, the wise and watchful father of all serpents, and the toad god Sathagua, who is served by protean beings with shapeless bodies composed of black ichor. This mythology of alien races may appear childish to the more materially minded, but it is accepted as real by many occultists who work with the potent forces of the Cthulhu mythos in their ritual magic and are willing to testify to its effectiveness. They do not believe that Lovecraft invented the Necronomicon and its contents from nothing, but rather maintain that he drew it forth from the astral realm during his dreams. They hold the view that the mythos describes real beings who have an existence on higher planes of reality, above our material world of 3 dimensions. These beings are able to interact with our reality and can communicate with those who ritually summon them. Lovecraft may have been much more than merely the author of horror stories. He may have been a visionary seer, able to peer into distant past and across dimensions during his disturbingly vivid nightmares, which he experienced throughout his life. Most of the important concepts in his fiction were drawn directly from these nightmares. Indeed, some stories are nothing more than unembellished descriptions of his reoccurring dreams. He did not even have to compose them, since they wrote themselves in his sleep. The Necronomicon itself is a dream conception. The name of the book was never invented by Lovecraft, but came to him in a dream. The same is true of the Lord of the Old Ones, known as Nyarlathotep, who figures so prominently in my novel Alhazred. Nyarlathotep was not invented by Lovecraft, but was merely copied from a reoccurring dream that became of one Lovecraft's short stories. The true Necronomicon may never have existed as a physical literary work, but if it is a book that never lived, it is also a book that refuses to die. Of all the occult texts, it is undoubtedly the most famous, a significant achievement for a book that until recent decades could be found only in the imagination. Its name has been covertly added to the card catalogs of the famous libraries of North America and Europe. Antiquarian book dealers regularly receive requests for it from buyers, and some, in fits of impish humor, even included it in their catalogs. It turns up in the bibliographies of occult texts and in other odd and unexpected places, and all these appearances serve to keep the myth of the book alive and growing. This persistence of the myth of the Necronomicon is a sure indication that it has at its heart something more than idle fantasy. The old ones speak to us on a very deep level of the subconscious mind. They resonate within us and move us in various ways. They are primal articulations of the vast chaotic sea of potential wherefrom which the universe arose, and from their proximity to the source of creation flows raw power that can be shaped and directed by ritual magic. The trumps of the Necronomicon tarot tap into and embody that power. You should be aware when you use the Necronomicon tarot that you are manipulating potential occult forces that can have real-life effects in the world. As Alhazared wrote in the Necronomicon, the old ones were, the old ones are, and the old ones shall be. Those who practice the magic of the Necronomicon swear that it brings results, and it's sometimes said in modern occult circles that the magic of the Enochian angels is the most potent and dangerous. Others assert that it is the magic of the spheres of Abraliman the Mage that can have the most unexpected consequences for the unwary. A case can be made that the most powerful magic of all is that of the Necronomicon, because it opens dimensional doors on the places where the old ones wait and watch, doors that may not be easy to close. All right, chapter 3, correspondences. I'll take a drink. All right. The Necronomicon tarot is designed to be in harmony with the set of esoteric correspondences used by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn was an English Rosicrucian society devoted to the study and practice of Western ceremonial magic that flourished at its beginning of the 20th century. Its teachings subsequently spread around the world so that today its correspondences for the tarot are the most widely used and recognized of any occult system. They were developed mainly for ritual magic and meditation, but they are helpful in fortune telling with the tarot because they give an additional depth of the meaning to the cards. The Golden Dawn system for the tarot trumps is based on the earliest known texts of the Hebrew Kabbalah called the Book of Formation, Sefer Yetzirah. In this brief Kabbalistic text, which is believed to date from the 2nd century, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are assigned to certain occult links with various astrological and elemental forces. In the late 18th century, French occultists noticed that there were 22 tarot trumps and also 22 Hebrew letters. They linked the two together by assigning the letters to the trumps. The Golden Dawn went a step further and transferred the occult associations of the Hebrew letters that appear in the Book of Formation to the tarot trumps. In the Kabbalistic text, the Hebrew alphabet is divided into 3 groups of letters: 3 mother letters, 7 double letters, and 12 single or simple letters. The 3 mothers are occultly associated with the three of the four esoteric elements: air, water, and fire. The 7 doubles are linked with the 7 planets recognized by ancient astrology. The 12 singles are assigned the 12 signs of the zodiac. The Golden Dawn system uses the bridge of the Hebrew alphabet to join the tarot trumps to these occult forces. The Hebrew alphabet was applied to the trumps in its natural order of letters, but the Golden Dawn changed the positions of 2 of the trumps to make them better match the occult forces assigned to them. The trumps strength and justice were inverted in their places by the Golden Dawn. This is why in older tarot decks, justice is numbered 8 and strength is numbered 11. But in esoteric tarot decks, the Golden Dawn teachings, strength is 8 and justice is 11. You do not need to worry about the Hebrew alphabet. The important connection is between the trumps and the occult forces assigned to the Hebrew letters themselves in the Kabbalah. The letters themselves merely form the bridge. However, I will give the English names of the Hebrew letters and their types so you can easily see how they join the trumps to the occult forces in the system of the Golden Dawn. Alright, you got 0, Fool, Aleph, Mother, Air. Number 1, Magician, Beth, double, Mercury. 2, High Priestess, Gimel, double, Moon. 3, Empress, Daleth, double, Venus. 4, He, single, Aries. 5, Hierophant, Vow, single, Taurus. 6, Lovers, Zayin, single, Gemini. 7, Chariot, Cheth, single, Cancer. 8, Strength, Teth, single, Leo. 9, Hermit, Yod, single, Virgo. X, Wheel, Calf, double, Jupiter. 11, Lamed, single, Libra. 12, Hanged Man, Mem, Mother, Water. 13, Death, Noon, single, Scorpio. 14, Temperance, Samek, single, Sagittarius. 15, Devil, Ayin, single, Capricorn. 16, Tower, Peh, double, Mars. 17, Star, Zadi, single, Aquarius. We got 18, Moon, Koph, single, Pisces. We got 19, Sun, Resh, double, Sun. We got 21, World, Tau, double, Saturn. Whew. All right. The use of these correspondences is quite simple. The meanings of the occult forces are applied to the trumps and aid in interpreting the meanings of the trumps. For example, when the trump strength appears in a divination layout, the astrological meaning of the zodiac sign Leo is applied to the tarot card, in addition to the native meaning of the card. It is an indication of the genius of the Golden Dawn system that the meanings of the zodiac signs, the planets, and the elements harmonize so well with the basic meanings of the trumps themselves. They allow a deeper reading of the trumps in tarot divinations. You should consult a book on astrology to understand the occult meanings of the signs and planets so that you can accurately assign these meanings to the trumps. In general, it may be observed that the planets are active in their influence on the trumps, whereas the zodiac signs are more in the background. Just as the zodiac provides the static backdrop for the dance of the planets in the heavens. Elements are not usually treated in astrological texts. Only the three active elements are linked to the trumps. The passive and inert element, earth, is not used. Earth is fundamentally different in its nature from the three active elements, as the teachings of Plato in his dialogue Timaeus clearly demonstrate. Plato shows by means of geometry that fire, air, and water could be converted one into the other because they are all based on the same basic building block, but that the geometric building block for the elemental earth is different. As a consequence, none of these higher three elements can be changed into earth, and earth cannot be made into any of the higher elements. Elemental fire is aggressive and willful, relating to the spirit and to the flashes of inspiration that strike like lightning. It burns and purifies the soul. It is what gives the power of command. Elemental air is active and piercing, quick and nimble, relating to the expression of thoughts, of the formulation of ideas in the mind and in their voicing on the tongue, or through other forms of communication. Elemental water is reflective and deep, concerned with feelings and emotions, affection, attachment, visions, and dreams. Elemental earth is solid and inert, slow to move, stubborn, dependable, unimaginative, rooted in its place, and linked with the body and physical earth. Fire equals will, earth equals air equals thoughts, water equals emotions, earth equals sensations. The three active elements applied to the trumps were understood by ancient philosophers to exist in realms above the surface of the earth. Nearest the ground was believed to be a zone of esoteric water, and above it, a zone of air, and above it, a zone of fire. It is these higher, more tenuous spiritual elements of the heavens that are applied to the trumps. However, all four ancient elements exist on the surface of the earth, embodied and expressed in a tangible way through physical substances. Here, the lowest inert element, earth, is alongside the lower and more material aspects of fire, air, and water. These four lower or earthly elements find their expression in the dynamic interrelationship between the court cards of the tarot. Each of the 16 court cards has two elemental properties. One is active and operates in the foreground, while the other is passive and serves as a background for the other element. The passive or background elements of the court cards are delivered from the suits. The active or foreground elements are based on the ranks of the court cards. It sounds confusing at first, but it's quite easy to understand. Wands equal fire, cups equal water, swords equal air, discs equal earth. All wands have as their general background elemental fire. This applies to the number cards as well as to the court cards. When interpreting the number cards, the element of their suit should always be considered. The number cards only have the background suit element, but the court cards have an additional foreground elemental property based on their ranks. Kings equal fire, queens equal water, knights equal air, knaves equal earth. When you combine these two elemental properties of each court card, they take on 16 distinct identities that are the 16 basic human personality types. This is why the court cards are used to stand for human beings in tarot divinations. Everyone falls into one of these 16 basic types of human personality, as expressed by pairs of the elements. The active element is derived from the rank. The active element derived from the rank is given first, followed by the background element derived from the suit. Alright, we got King of Wands, Fire of Fire, Queen of Wands, Water of Fire, Knight of Wands, Air of Fire, Knave of Wands, Earth of Fire, King of Cups, Fire of Water, Queen of Cups, water of water. Knight of Cups, air of water. Knave of Cups, earth of water. King of Swords, fire of air. Queen of Swords, water of air. Knight of Swords, air of air. Knave of Swords, earth of air. King of Discs, fire of earth. Queen of Discs, water of earth. Knight of Discs, air of earth. Knave of Discs, earth of earth. The elemental pairs can be of great use in figuring out how to assign the court cards to individuals by personality type. For example, the King of Wands is all fire in his nature. His ability to restrain his temper is weak when he is contradicted. He must dominate others and is a natural leader. By contrast, the Queen of Wands is water acting against a backdrop of fire. These elements are in opposition, so there is a conflict in her nature. Her fiery temperament can sometimes flash with instability, but usually she is able to apply it smoothly, like burning oil. These are the most important of the Golden Dawn Tarot correspondences. They can be of great help in gaining a deeper understanding of the meaning of the cards and divination layouts, and are of value in clarifying a reading that is uncertain, subject to two possible interpretations. Even though the individual correspondences are not printed on the faces of the Necronomicon tarot cards, users of the deck should be aware that the cards were designed to be in harmony with these correspondences. The full power of the Golden Dawn system can be applied when the cards are used. All right, Chapter 4, Trumps. Drakey poo. Ass is hurting. Only got a few more minutes on here. See if we can get through some of these cards. All right, 0, Fool, Azathoth, elemental air. The blind, idiot god, Azathoth, sits naked on his throne of carved obsidian, blubbering from the corners of his thick lips as he pipes trilling notes from his reed flute. His misshapen body is covered with filth and of an unhealthy complexion, for it has never felt the sunlight, and his hair hangs matted and uncut over his obese torso. Slime seeps from the hollow sockets of his blind eyes. His face, strangely obscured by uncouth angles that defy comprehension, glows with its own dark inner fire. Within his hall of shadow, where is to be found no sane geometry, but only distortions of space, the music of his flute wraps around his shoulders like a living cloak, which is composed of the transparent bodies of countless intertwined, dancing, naked spirits, both male and female. The spirits of the notes that tremble on air like crystalline bells. The flute is cracked on its end, so that it can form no perfect note, and for this reason, all of these dancing and lustful spirits are imperfect. Some lack a hand or an arm, others a foot or a leg, some are without eyes, others without ears. Their bodies are distorted with insane proportions, even as the music is strange on the ear, having no certain modality. Excrement and slime surround the base of his throne, and in his rest, the filthy feet of the god, his great head is cocked to one side, as though listening. His hands are unnaturally large, his fingers long and dexterous, as they seek out the sound holes of his instrument. All is dark and gloom covered, except for the cloak of sound, which shines with bright colors, as though illuminated from within, as it streams away into infinite distance. It resembles a dancing rainbow and contains all the forms and motions of everything that was, is, and will be in the universe. Upright. Innocence, simplicity, naivete, childlike wonder, spiritual path, new beginning, journey of discovery, higher guidance, need for prudence. Inverted, credulity, heedlessness, folly, inability to adapt, blindness, good advice ignored, meaningless talk, impulsiveness, rashness, danger ahead. All right. That was number 0, Fool Azathoth. Number 1, Magician Nyarlathotep, Mercury. He stands atop the crest of a giant sand dune in the empty space, his swirling cloak silvered by the light of the waning moon as it billows behind him on the night breeze. All his clothing is black, his cloak, his hooded robe, his tall boots. Within his hood, black silk wraps around his face like the caul that sometimes covers the face of a newborn babe. His body is of human shape, tall and straight. His hands appear to be gloved, so black is his skin, and his bony fingers are impossibly long. Upon them, jewels set in rings catch the moonlight, imitating the stars in the black vault of heaven above his head. With his right hand, he points a judgment at a man who kneels in supplication at his feet. The unfortunate man's body is consumed by a wasting magic, so that the skin and flesh that cover his bones have turned to dust and blow away on the wind, leaving only the white bones of his skeleton, which have not yet collapsed into a heap upon the sand. With his left hand, Nyarlathotep peels away the lower portion of his black silk caul, revealing part of his face within the oval of his hood. Yet, no face is there to expose, for where nose and mouth should be, there is only blackness, speckled with the same stars that are behind him in the night sky, so that the illusion is given that his head is hollow and that the stars may be seen through his hood. A spiritual essence which glows with eerie green light and resembles a stream of mist coils up from the desiccated bones of the man who kneels on the sand and flows like an undulating serpent into the hood of the god at the place where his mouth would be, if he possessed a mouth. Nyarlathotep consumes the human essence of the poor fool who displeased him, but whether it is for some strange incorporeal sustenance or for a darker and more sinister purpose, who can know? Upright, attainment, mastery, skill, artfulness, strong will, dominant mind, eloquence, persuasiveness, misdirection, manipulation, transformation, a great wonder. Inverted, craftiness, slyness, deception, leading astray, illusion, a dangerous person, abuse of power, false glamour, hurtful revelation, a trickster, attempt to entrap. Alright. See if we can squeeze out a couple more before the time runs out, y'all. Alright. Next we have Roman numeral 2, High Priestess, Bast, Moon. A slender young priestess, wearing an elaborate mask in the shape of a cat's head that completely covers her head and is supported on her shoulders, sits enthroned with her bare feet firmly on the stones of the floor. She is dressed in ancient Egyptian fashion, and her breasts are exposed. Silver ornaments adorn her bare arms and ankles. Her necklace is in the form of a large silver lunar crescent that hangs in the valley of her breasts. In one hand, she holds a black ankh by its loop so that it dangles in front of the arm on her throne. And in the other hand, she holds vertically at the side of her chair the white shaft of a lotus wand in the form of an oversized arrow. The flower of the lotus is formed by the expanded plum of multicolored feathers that fletch the inverted arrow, and the lower end of the stem terminates in a silver arrowhead. Behind her looms the stone statue of the goddess Bast, in the shape of a seated Egyptian cat, somewhat resembling the modern Siamese with its slender body and short coat of hair. The statue is enormous, twice the height of a man. It looks forward with a tranquil expression on its face, and its green eyes realistically fashioned from jet, jade, and ivory. It is so positioned that it almost appears to be an astral projection of the priestess, a spiritual expression of another side of her identity. Her mask resembles the head of the statue of the goddess. At the base of the throne, upon the polished stones of the temple floor in front of her feet, rests a wooden bowl filled with milk. A living Egyptian cat, black in color, leans down to lap at the milk. Another, that is all white, rubs its shoulder lovingly against the bare leg of the priestess. Yet another, that is gray, lies draped across the lap of the priestess, gazing forward alertly, so that its head is in line with the head of the statue and the mask of the priestess. The carved paws of a lioness adorn the legs of the throne, the high back of which bears a carving in the shape of the disk of the moon, touched by the waning moon on the left and the waxing moon on the right. Upright, mystery, wisdom, teaching, spiritual secrets, benevolent guide, initiation, open mind, higher communication, entry into a circle, spiritual gift, inverted, dangerous instruction, intrigues, spiritual burden, trust betrayed, oath broken, evil counsel, dark secrets, the wrong path, sterile teachings. All right, let's see if we can get through another one real quick. All right, Roman numeral 3, Empress, Shub-Niggurath, Venus. The goddess stands in the lascivious pose of a dancer. Lascivious. The goddess stands in the lascivious pose of a dancer, completely naked. Her head is bestial and strange, bristling with wild hair like the thick black bristles of the boar and having 4 horns, 2 that curve upward and 2 that curve downward on each side. Her ears are pointed and tufted at their tips. The pupils of her wildly glaring eyes are lateral slits, like those of a goat, and her snarling mouth is filled with sharp teeth resembling the teeth of a wolf. Voluptuous rounded breasts cover her chest, even down to her belly, but her belly is smooth, and its outward dome shows that she is pregnant. Her arms are those of a woman poised gracefully in dance. In one hand she holds a human skull, and in the other a noose of twisted cloth with which to strangle her enemies. Her legs and feet are those of a goat, covered with shaggy hair and cloven. The dancing body of the goddess is enclosed in an aura lit along its edges with flames. The aura has the shape of a pointed oval and resembles a widely gaping vulva. In this flaming portal to other worlds she dances, both framed and sustained by its curved walls. It is most shocking to write that the insides of her hairy thighs are stained with menstrual blood that seeps from her sex, as the vulva of this dark goddess of endless fecundity gapes open. Fecundity. Her dance is the dance of life and death. Her feet, numerous naked and horned infants. Around her feet, numerous naked and horned infants lie squalling, or sit and gape or crawl on hands and knees or cling to her leg so that there is no place for her to set down her dancing foot without crushing one of them. Upright, fertility, vitality, excess of passion, wildness, unchecked enthusiasm, strong growth, good health, womb of nature, pregnancy, new life, maternal instincts, sensual woman, inverted, frenzy, lustfulness, boundaries exceeded, generative excess, mutation, deformity, obsessed with flesh, unhealthy growth, possible disease, a kind of stillbirth